Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Come on along and welcome aboard the Indiana Sports Beat, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. It's August 6th. I'm Jim Coyle. Welcome aboard. Todd Leary's here as well. Got plenty to get to. Jake Query's going to join us today. Also, Dustin Schutte. We're going to talk some football. Lots of things coming out about football, Todd Leary. The schedule is out from the Big Ten. The games are set, and there's plenty to talk about, man.
You've had a day to analyze it. What are your thoughts on the schedule? I mean, I the Minnesota game, adding that, I actually kind of like it. It's more competitive, and it's not a cupcake win for sure. But for the life of me, can somebody explain to me why they flip-flopped the two Michigan State games?
Yeah,
to home and away.
They did it just because of in doing what they had to do to the schedule. That was like the one thing that they had to do to make it work out. I'm cool with it because they reset next year. It goes off of this year. It doesn't revert back. So you're not going to get to three home games in a row. But it was just, I think there was 3 total games that they had to do that to. And also the Indiana Purdue game is the only traditional rivalry game, Big Ten rivalry game that was left at the end of the season. Because they want to make sure they can get those games in, which tells you they don't really care about the IU Purdue game, probably because it's a cross-divisional game. It doesn't have any bearing on the division, so it has a lot less of importance.
So did they change the Ohio State-Michigan game?
Well, I mean, they may have changed the date. I'm not sure.
The date?
Nothing changed as far as who's home or whatnot.
Interesting.
And let's see, Indiana gets Michigan at home again. And let's see, they had them. Was they here last? They were on the road at Michigan State last year. So that means Michigan came here again. So they'll get Michigan here 2 years in a row. I don't know if that's going to help because there's not going to be any fans. But that's going to be a big thing for Indiana when they go up to places like Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, and it's more than just the fans. It's kind of the whole, routine that you get used to, and you're more used to I know they stay in a hotel, they don't stay in their homes anyway, but you just kind of get used to that. And there's an advantage to it.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an extraordinarily challenging season, but for Indiana, I think that it couldn't come at a better time because they're ready for it from a competitive standpoint. They have the team. They've got guys coming back. They're in place. Everything is there. They don't have – now that can all change, of course, with injuries or COVID. But as of right now, they're in a pretty good spot, I honestly believe. I think they're in a good spot to challenge to move up to the 3rd spot or the 4th spot of the Big Ten East, replacing Michigan State, whom they have to travel back to again. They traveled to Michigan State last year. Should have won that game, but they got to go back this year to East Lansing, which, again, shouldn't be that big a deal. They should have won that game last year, so we'll see.
If you're guessing which one you have a better chance at winning, I think they have a much better chance at beating Michigan State at Michigan State than Michigan at Michigan. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, they get Michigan at home, luckily.
Right.
So,
yeah, I know. But I mean,
Michigan State,
one of those on the road.
Absolutely, and Michigan State is in a little bit of flux. New coach, new regime. Obviously, there's a reason for that, and so it's the timing's there. Indiana, look at this schedule; it is challenging. They can go 6-4 with this schedule. I really believe that. Now, to me, they have to go 6-4 to show improvement. A 5-5 season that would equate to an 8-win season, but to me, that's status quo. You got to move up. You got to beat somebody. They haven't beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat yet. And that's the thing that is, for me, I need to see them beat somebody. They've got to beat somebody that they're not supposed to show that.
And along with that, they've got to do what the good teams do, what the Alabamas do, and what the Georgias do. They've got to beat all the people that they're supposed to beat. Like, you're totally right. They've got to have a breakout signature win this year. It's got to be Penn State or Michigan State or Michigan or somebody like that. Probably not going to be Ohio State, although that would be the best one possible. But they've also And it's not as easy as it sounds to do, but I mean, they've got to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And that list includes Purdue.
Exactly. And that started last year. They accomplished that.
They did that, right.
And because of that, they had a good season. The funny thing is, had they done one time what we're talking about now, and they were in position a couple of times, they would have really exacerbated their season. Well, that's okay. You move forward. If they can win 6 games, that is a 9-win regular season. You add those 3 non-conference wins just onto that. That's a 9-win regular season. That doesn't happen in Indiana. So, yeah, that would be, to me, that's what they need to do to show improvement. Because if you can't show improvement with everybody coming back, I don't know when you're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It just is.
It puts the pressure on, no doubt. It's putting pressure on them.
It's a different kind of pressure. It's an expectation, and when you're expected to win, it's just a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on you in and out of every game, and then you go to every possession, and then you go to every play. Like there's a lot of pressure on these guys, but it's pressure that you want to have on you as a player, as a coach. You want that expectation from the fans and from the administration, and you know it's something that you strive for, and they're there. They've just got to capitalize on it.
I've heard Coach Allen talk about it. He understands. He knows.
Sure.
You know, it's cool what he's doing, the recruiting successes he's having, kind of bringing football into the forefront of Indiana fans. That in and of itself is unique. But he knows at the end of the day, you got to win. Just like Al Davis said, just win, baby. You got to win, and he knows that. But he's doing it the right way, and I'm no qualms about what he's done. I think he's done phenomenal. But I just think that they have to show improvement. This is what you got to do.
And when you look at what they've accomplished off the field, so from a recruiting standpoint and from a hiring coaches standpoint, they've done a great job. They've been well above average. I mean, they're at B+ range, grading all of that side of the game. Now it has to translate to the field, because if you do all of that great and you still don't win, that'll go away in a hurry.
Tim hit the text line, said Michigan has IU ranked as 5th toughest game behind Minnesota, Penn State, Wisconsin, and their most toughest Ohio State. You mentioned earlier they added that Minnesota game. Boy, now it wouldn't be so bad to have seen Northwestern come in here for Indiana just to have a little bit easier time of it, because
from a win perspective, you're right. But from an opportunity for a signature win, I like it. I mean, I like that's a good test.
No doubt about that. No doubt about it. But the thing is, they're going to get plenty tested because they play in the Big Ten East, which means you play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Michigan State. Then on top of that, they get the top 2 teams in the West with Wisconsin and now Minnesota. So there's no way Indiana does not have the toughest Big Ten schedule. I just don't know how that's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, would you have rather they added Iowa over Minnesota? I mean, I think that would have been a tougher game.
Yeah, either one of them. The only saving grace for Minnesota is they got a lot coming back, but they lost their top receiver. He opted out over COVID issues, and he's not going to play. And he was a good one. He's he's preparing for the draft, so that helps a little bit. But they're rolling the boat up there, man. PJ Fleck's got them rolling the boat, and they're doing quite well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 2 teams that probably took the biggest leaps last year as far as moving their program forward. I think nationally, about everyone would say Minnesota did the most in the Big Ten, but right behind that, I would say everyone thinks Indiana is kind of right there behind them, and it's an easy position to overtake. I mean, you go beat them this year, especially you beat them on the road up there. That definitely jumps you back in front of them. So, I mean, it's a position you want to be in. They're not at the Ohio State, Michigan level yet, Wisconsin level yet, but both of these 2 programs are right there on the doorstep trying to get in that group.
The Indianapolis 500 comes up shortly. We'll talk about that when Jake Query joins us. I saw that IU has partnered with a tech company to help athletes with the name, image, likeness changes that are coming. It will offer digital tools to help them build a brand, it'll access their social media accounts. It was started by 2 former Nebraska football players, and Nebraska picked it up now. Michigan's got it. Other teams, Indiana. So, man, these dudes are killing it. But what a great idea. But here you go, the new age of college athletics. Come build your brand. It's like Build-A-Bear.
It is. Here's going to be the question. Yeah, I mean, here's the question with it, Jim. Is that legal? Like, are these?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, because it's legal now for these kids, so they're just helping them actually to navigate it, probably without probably to help them do it legally,
not break the rules. Yeah,
not break the rules, because nobody knows the stinking recruiting rules. You want to bring something brand new into this and expect these kids to know what these rules are? No way. So yeah, I think that this is needed and very, very cool. Very smart by these dudes, because they're going to kill it. They've already got the inside track, and they've gotten a bunch of the Big Ten teams, and that's probably only going to get even larger.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think they're going to battle, which obviously they did good, or they did the right thing getting in early, but they're going to battle like the large sports agencies. Those guys have got gazillions of dollars to throw at something like this, and they could let these guys kind of build the ground floor, and then they'll come in and sweep it all up and take all the big clients. But they also may come in and buy these guys out. So these guys have done a fantastic job of getting in early.
Scott Dolson and Tom Allen is going to do a Zoom conference later today. We'll have that for you tomorrow. Haven't heard from Scott in quite a while.
Together or individually?
No, it'll be separate. Scott's probably just going to be more on stuff moving forward, and of course Coach Allen on football. Football camp opens today. They have their first practice today. Normally I would be getting done with the show and heading out to practice. And
but now you'll just be dialing a different number.
Yep. 2 numbers in a row. Just sit right here. Oh, let me go to this screen. Let me go to this. As a matter of fact, I'll have to access it before we get off here, because it starts right at it. So, but yeah, it's camp starts today, which is
they used to like, I know you, just like you said, like you generally would be out there watching it. Are they going to allow you to are they going to simulcast it or anything where you can?
No, they're going to provide.
That'd be a good idea.
Provide things.
Be a good idea.
Well, they're already secretive enough as it is, so they're not going to let out. Like when we're there, we're only allowed to shoot during certain times, and that's usually at the beginning. It's towards the beginning of practice. And there's a time cutoff. They say, all right, boop, and it cuts off. You can't take pictures. You can't shoot videos at that point. Can't do anything. So they cover that pretty restrictively. But it's going to be different. It's going to suck. I'll be honest with you.
We could call the Patriots and find out how to
get around that. There's a great idea. Great idea. But yeah, it will though. It'll kind of suck because getting to see that stuff is great, because you can see growth. You can see mood, like watching the quarterbacks. Like my big thought is, who's the number 2 quarterback? They brought in Jack Tuttle, a great quarterback. He's so sought after, but he's a pocket passer, pro style, and everything they're doing is with a different, more of an athletic quarterback, I think. So
right.
It's going to be kind of odd if that were to come to be, if he had to come in. But they're a big passing offense, so it's not like it's a huge change. But that's something I was thinking about the other day. But regardless, hey, Jake Query's going to join us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Can't wait for that. Dustin Schuette's on today as well. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Alec Lasley and Paul Giggles got complete coverage of all of that. And like I said, Scott Dolson's going to be on a Zoom call today. Tom Allen will have all that for you tomorrow. But coming up next, Jake Query is going to join us. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat. We'll be back with more right after this.
Looks like a road that you travel on when there's one day and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat on this Thursday. Getting close to the end of the week. Joined now by Jake Query. Jake, how you doing, man?
Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Not a lot going on out there. Just hitting the roads, traveling around, enjoying some fine summertime driving. Todd said you had a very unique story yesterday. I see it on your post, man. That was just, which is kind of cool because I remember Kenny Irwin, but I had no idea. I don't remembering that he was even from Indiana.
Well, I actually called Todd yesterday because I knew, working in racing, I knew obviously of Kenny Irwin. And I don't think a lot of people realize that Kenny Irwin Jr. went to Lawrence North, and I think was, Todd, a year ahead of you at LM?
Yeah, 1 year ahead of me, yep.
So, he came up through the ranks running in USAC and then ultimately doing the Busch Series, which now would be the Xfinity Series in NASCAR. But, he was really kind of right in that same breath with Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart was his big rival. They were friends, but they were on track, huge competitors of one another. And he was a rising star in NASCAR, and I think probably would have been in that Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, Casey Kane mold, if not for the fact that he was, obviously tragically fatally injured in an accident 20 years ago in New Hampshire. But so I just happened to be driving yesterday. I'm like, okay, it's a nice. I don't have a job. Why not drive around? And so I just happened to be passing the cemetery where I knew he was his resting place, and I found his resting place, and then I look at it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, yesterday was his 51st birthday, so maybe it was meant to be. And then I decided I was going to check out Conner Prairie Settlement, because I've never been there, believe it or not, having grown up in, the pioneer village, if you will. And I walk in at 3:15, they're like, oh, we're closed. And then I thought, well, I guess it is 1840, so they've probably been up some plowing since 4, so I guess it makes sense. So I don't know. As soon as I get done with this call, maybe I'll go over to Conner Prairie for lunch. Since it's 9:30, they're probably
Yeah, that was wild, though. Yeah, I just didn't remember him being from Indiana. And when Todd said, he went to Lawrence North, I'm like, really? And I pride myself on knowing that kind of stuff. And, boy, that one just slipped by me. But wild that it happened to be his birthday you were out there.
Yeah, it was strange for sure. And you're right. I mean, there's so many guys. I think a lot of people like Jeff Gordon when he was – obviously Jeff Gordon was only here for high school, and it was specifically for racing purposes. But when he was at Tri-West, I think if you talk to a lot of people at Tri-West at that time, they'd say, I don't really remember that guy because, guys like that, they're just going to school Monday through Friday, and then boom, they're gone every weekend. So they're not really socializing with their classmates because they're
not playing sports, not developing relationships and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird. Speaking of, if we're going to talk about famous graves in Indiana, I did the same thing once. It didn't turn out to be his birthday, but I was driving around and I remembered I knew where I was. I was up, I can't remember the town. I'd have to research it real quick. But James Dean, who is from and buried here in Indiana, I remember going by his grave and just thought how weird it was. And here's at one time, one of the most famous people in the world, and just lying right here in some barely marked grave.
Fascinating about James Dean. He's from Fairmount, which is in Grant County, outside of Marion, in Indiana. And you are correct. His grave is there. This town, the town of Fairmount, I mean, it's probably 2,000 people. It's tiny. And it's not only the home of James Dean, it's also still, I believe, the home of, or certainly the hometown of Jim Davis, the guy that does Garfield. So I'm like, how do you have two guys that are basically world known that are from a town like this, and hell, they have the same initials? Like, what, I guess if you're going to move to Fairmount, change your name to, like, Jack Daniels, and you'll be a whiskey millionaire. What the hell?
Only you come up with this kind of quirky information. But you're just a walking encyclopedia of useless knowledge.
Todd, it's not useless if you can find somebody to pay you for it. Now, the problem is I have never found anybody to pay me for this. So you're correct. It isn't no useless knowledge. It means that you get to do radio shows 5 hours before you normally wake up. So I mean, it's cool, right?
You are lucky.
We've got the Indianapolis 500 coming up, Jake, and Roger Penske initially was going to allow fans in and has now relented on that and is going to run this without fans. Not a big deal, I think, at this current climate. But I'm glad to see that they came to their senses to put that on TV, which I thought that they would eventually anyway. But now that they've made that announcement, makes people feel a lot better about getting to watch it race this year.
Well, there's no doubt about the fact that, the television blackout for the Indianapolis 500 in the Indianapolis market has always been a unique thing. They lifted it only once, and that was for the 100th run, because they had essentially reached the general admission capacity, at least by the Department of Homeland Security. Said, look, you can't have any more people inside the venue, so then they did it then. I think that a lot of people, once the blackout was lifted, that kind of started to make people wonder if, in fact, this was going to be the case, because they had limited the attendance from 50%, then down to 25%. And look, I know that there are a million ways that it can be analyzed and scrutinized and criticized. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know whether or not sitting outside, if everyone's wearing a mask, I don't know what the risks are. But I think a lot of people need to understand from a business standpoint, and I'm not saying this as a spokesperson for Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I want to make that very clear, but not only is there the risk of the spectators and the health in today's climate, but you also enter into an arena where you're putting yourself at risk from both a public relations standpoint and a potential liability standpoint, even if the ticket says 1 million places on it, or you sign a waiver, whatever it may be, that you're not going to hold anybody liable if you were to become ill after attending it. I mean, there's no way to specifically know where someone gets the virus. But I think large groups and events, we've reached into the liability standpoint where you've got to be careful and protect your own brand. And once IU Health, who is the medical partner for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and a sponsor, and the Infield Care Center is the IU Health Infield Care Center, the Turnkey Suites are the Riley Children's Hospital Suites. Once IU Health came out publicly urging the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to rethink it being an attended event. I don't know for a fact that that's what really accelerated the conversation, because I know the conversations were taking place anyway. But I would think certainly that, that obviously tipped the hand a little bit of, hey, maybe we really are in a no-win situation here. So it's going to be unique. At this point, it's not the month of May anymore, so I think to a lot of people that page had been turned a little bit in their mind. And the fans are so much a part of that event, more so than any other sporting event probably in the world. The fans make it the event that it is, the largest single-day spectator sport in the world. So to all of a sudden have it be a non-spectated sport, it's going to be really odd. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be really weird. I'll tell you guys this. I did the Brickyard for the IMS Radio Network, and it was the same conditions. And it was really weird to me because I drove my car in, parked right next to the pagoda, and then when the race was ready to go, I got in my car, drove it right through the middle of the track, went right underneath the tunnel, parked right underneath where I'm supposed to broadcast from. And usually that's a 30-minute venture on a golf cart with 26 people jumping in front of it, 52 people trying to get a ride, and at least 3 off-road experiences over people asleep in the middle of the infield. So, to be able to just drive my car, it was weird. It was really weird.
From a broadcast perspective, are you turn 3? Is that where you are for the Indy 500? Okay, so from a broadcast perspective, how important do you feed? Like you can hear in your guys' voices and the guys who have done it for years. How important do you feed off of the crowd? How much different will it be? Having that Brickyard experience will probably help, but how much different will it be not having the fans, the roar, and everybody standing up when they're coming around, for the final couple of laps?
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Tom. But I would, to be honest with you, I think as a player, as a basketball player, you can probably relate to this. And in no way, stretch or form, am I comparing doing a radio broadcast to playing big-time basketball. I want to be clear on that. But once the race begins and you have a job to do, you really just kind of focus in on what's happening on the track, and you kind of block out, and you don't even – because I'll be honest, there have been a few times where I've looked around at the crowd, and then you get kind of nervous because you think, wait a minute, these people can all hear what I'm doing. And, it's odd. But once the race begins, you're so focused on what's going on with the cars on the track and making sure you're identifying them correctly that you kind of block all of the rest of that out. Now, I'll tell you, but last year I remember specifically saying at the end of the race, like thanking everyone for coming and being a part of what we just experienced, because I made it a point late in the race, maybe just for my own appreciation of it, to watch the crowd reaction. And then there was just kind of this feeling of camaraderie of, hey, we're all witnessing and experiencing this together, which is really pretty cool. But it doesn't make you nervous or anything like that. I'll tell you the one aspect that changes from a broadcast standpoint, and I didn't even realize this until the Brickyard. Those seats are all aluminum. Most of them, right? The benches essentially all the way around the place. You move the human beings out of it. The sound is about 3 times louder. The sound of the cars reverberates off of all of that metal, and it is really hard to hear each other in the broadcast. So during the Brickyard, we basically were saying to each other in the break on an intercom, look, we can't hear each other, so just generically drop it on the racetrack. When I see them hit a certain point, I'm going to start talking. And when they leave a certain point, I'm going to stop talking. And Christian and Eric, you pick it up. But let's not do things, let's not lead each other into a comment or ask for a comment, just generically throw it around. Because now the NASCAR cars are louder than Indy cars, but the sound was so loud because you didn't have humans to kind of absorb all of the sound between the cars and myself. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier we were talking about some of the Indiana guys. And it's surprising that actually the Indiana drivers have a much bigger presence, NASCAR presence, than the IndyCar presence, it seems like, with Kenny Irwin we talked about, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, even Newman from Purdue. Some big names in NASCAR racing where we don't really see that as much. Of course, the Andretti's, I guess, can be counted, but that's kind of, I don't know. But it's weird to see them have a bigger presence in NASCAR.
It's an excellent point, and it really can be derived pretty simply. What it comes down to is this. If you look at the path that all of those guys you just mentioned took, in 1975, that path would have led them into open wheel racing. So if you listen to the 1975 Indy 500, Bobby Unser, Al Unser, Johnny Rutherford, Rick Mears,
AJ Foyt,
all those guys came up racing on Fridays and Saturday nights on dirt tracks and USAC tracks around the country. For those guys that you just mentioned, they went that same path, but when their careers got to the point where it was time to, okay, now I've got a bunch of sponsorship money to head to the big leagues, if you will, that was during the open wheel split of the Indy Racing League and CART and everything that took place with that. So the sponsors basically said, hey, instead of going into a big-time open-wheel racing series where there are two different leagues, why not give stock car a try? There's a lot of opportunity there. They're starting to get now on primetime television. So those guys all went that route. Kevin Harvick, Casey Kane, all those guys. A lot of those guys will tell you they grew up when they were 12 thinking they were going to be racing in the Indy 500. But by the time they got to the age where that fork was in the road, so to speak, it was NASCAR that had the opportunity for them.
Yeah, and we see right now you got Chase Briscoe from right down the road in Mitchell, and daggone it, I've drawn a blank on it, from up in northern Indiana, number 11, in the under tier series of NASCAR. They're poised to move up soon, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, there's, that's the thing. IndyCar has worked tirelessly to try to get people with the Mazda Road to Indy and the different ladder series. There's a lot of money. It takes so much money in open wheel. Not that it doesn't in stock car, don't get me wrong. But, still that there's no doubt about the fact that that's now all filtered towards the Cup side of things. And for a lot of young drivers, that's where they ultimately want to go now, because it's become, you're running 40-some races a year. For your sponsors, it's a great – and that, I'm not saying IndyCar's not. But NASCAR is a great opportunity from a sponsorship standpoint because of the number of races you're doing, the number of opportunities you get, whether it be in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series. Whereas with IndyCar, you're running – that's the other thing, is you're not in Cup, you're running in ovals. In IndyCar, you got to be able to drive road courses, street courses, and short ovals and large ovals. So for a lot of those guys, running in street course or road course racing isn't something that's in their forte. So it naturally fits now to go into the NASCAR side.
Jake, what's coming up next for you? I know you're preparing for the Indy 500 right now. That's pretty much all that I'm sure is on your mind, other than driving around to cemeteries.
Yeah. Well, let's see. There's got to be some other landmarks that close 4 hours before I get there, so that, I can go and be disappointed. But I know, my primary job now, my only, is doing racing play-by-play for the IndyCar Radio Network, which means every IndyCar event. Well, that's obviously been a fluctuating schedule, understandably so with everything going on. So I was supposed to be in Mid-Ohio, for example, leaving tonight from Mid-Ohio this weekend. That's been postponed. We still have the Gateway race, which is St. Louis, which is a week after the 500. That's still listed as a doubleheader and is still scheduled to go. So doing those broadcasts and then everything that comes into the Indy 500, which will include trackside reports for practice days that are taking place, and then obviously qualifying in the race. It's funny because it's a full-time job, but typically it only means that you work 3 days an event, right? So you work like 6 days a month. So outside of that, it's really just a matter of kind of figuring out what my next move's going to be. I still don't really know what that's going to be, but paying attention to and hoping that we get the races in is where I am right now.
I think we can just call you up every Thursday, and we'll just do a new segment called "Where's Jake?" We'll just see where you are and see what's going on.
Where I went, I know you guys are up against it, but I will tell you this: like 2 weeks ago, I think it was on a Thursday. I was bored, clearly. I went to Claiborne Farms in Kentucky, which was the worst.
Oh, beautiful.
It was unbelievable. We're Secretariat, because I'm a huge Secretariat fan. And
Me too. That's weird. My first memory of life that I can actually remember is watching the 1973 Belmont when Secretariat won by 31 lengths. I remember watching that on a black and white TV. That's my first thing that I really remember in life. What a great moment. But yeah, great horse. But Jake, yeah, we do got to run, man. We appreciate you joining us, and I look forward to doing it again as Indy 500 right around the corner.
All right, let me know, guys, anytime.
Thanks, buddy.
Jake Query joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We got lots more coming up. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition is going to join us. We're talking some Big Ten football. Stay tuned. We're back with that and more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat on this Thursday. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, as always, joined now by our good friend Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Dustin, football schedule came out yesterday for the Big Ten. I'm excited about it from an Indiana standpoint. I think it's very challenging for the Hoosiers, but it is a great opportunity for them to move this program forward.
Yeah, you might be in the rare minority if you're excited about that schedule.
It's going to be a tough one.
If you're talking about you like to see good football, you like to see a challenging schedule and see maybe where the Hoosiers stand up compared to where they were a season ago and how they stack up against the rest of the Big Ten, then absolutely this is a schedule that is going to allow that, and you'll see that. But if you're looking for the total number of wins this season, especially early on in the year, then yeah, you'll be in the minority there. But it's interesting because we talked about a few months ago when we still had the full 2020 schedule about the possibility of Indiana being 7-0 or 6-1, depending on how that first game against Wisconsin went. And now you're looking at the schedule and you kind of scratch your head and go, boy, if we can get to 2-4 even, it might be a success just because of how brutal and how front loaded that schedule is.
Yeah, to be honest with you, in my opinion, for Indiana for the program to show that they're still moving forward, I think they need to go 2-2 to open up the season. Those first 4 games, that's going to be a tough one on the road at Wisconsin. But without the fans, it's going to change the dynamic, and I think that's something that benefits Indiana because they're a team that is susceptible to that, whether that's through coaching or players. We've seen mistakes on the road, but I think that's going to be a benefit to Indiana, obviously, this particular season. Maybe give them a chance to grow up, and it's the same with the coaching. Indiana has the least experienced coaching staff, one of the least in the country, much less the Big Ten. So that helps them as they gain that experience and move along. But, yeah, you open up Wisconsin, Penn State, that's not easy, man.
No, and I think what's interesting, it's not to me so much that Indiana can't beat some of these teams, but let's just use basketball, last year's Big Ten basketball schedule as an example. When you're playing so many good teams on a weekly basis, when you have that schedule front-loaded, I mean, the first 6 games, Indiana's opponents – all 6 of them went to bowl games last season. 4 of them won at least 10 games, and the combined record of those first 6 games is 60-20. So when you play that many good teams in a row, it may not be a matter of we can beat this team on any given Saturday. It's the fact that we have to beat some of the Big Ten's best teams. We have to play them each and every week, and we don't really get a break in those first 6 games. Indiana should be able to beat Illinois. They have enough talent to beat Illinois. I think they have enough talent to beat Michigan this season. But I think that the issue here with Indiana is the fact that Indiana is a team that could have gotten better as the season went along under their previous schedule, I want to say, because that allowed them to grow. That allowed them to get to 6-1, like I said, 7-0, and build some momentum when you go into some of these bigger games against Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Now you got to come out of the gate guns blazing, and you really don't have time to grow up. You've got to grow up during fall camp these next 30 days and be ready for Wisconsin, be ready for Penn State. This is going to be a real challenge, and I don't necessarily think you can look at Indiana's schedule. Yes, you want them to be competitive, but you can't look at Indiana's schedule if they go 2-4 and say that this is a disappointing season because there's really no break in those first 6 weeks.
No, there's not. And if it's going to be, Indiana of old, that's, I guess, acceptable. But if they want to say that this program is growing, I don't think that is acceptable to do. It's not like you can do anything about it, but I'm just saying, if this program is to move forward, you can't use the excuse of not having any non-conference games because it's the same for everybody, and it's just either you do or you don't. But it's wow, certainly has not made it any easier without having those games to grow, Todd. Because
Jim, yeah, and Jim, one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially during the basketball season, like Dustin said, momentum is a huge issue, and when you start playing well and you're feeding off of success, it's hard to even explain how important that can be for having a great year. Now, having a good year, I think Indiana last year had a good year. I think this year they were planning on having at minimum a good year and potentially a great year. And a lot of that goes with the way the schedule was set up last year. And I think Dustin makes a great point. It's so front loaded right now that it can go either way. It can be at the point of if they can come out of the gate and beat a Wisconsin, this could be a monumental season for them. But it's the momentum side of it is what is kind of the unknown, and that's what scares me about the schedule. I love it. I love the way that it is, and honestly, I mean, I could be in a real small minority here in saying this, but I honestly think that Tom Allen and the whole program has a pass this year. I think they've got a COVID pass, and they could end the year at 4-6, and I don't think anybody's going to look at it and say all of this stuff was just hoopla before. It was all just rah-rah stuff. They're really not going to be that good. I think they've got a little bit of a pass this year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tough deal because everybody's had stuff interrupted, and when you have practices or whatever interrupted, that stops the flow and it stops of what you're trying to do. Everything you're trying to do, there's an end game of where you're trying to get to, and there is a plan to get to that. And when that plan is disrupted, it changes things. And
even back in like the 1950s and 60s, did they ever play conference only schedules? Or is this truly the first time it's ever happened?
Probably this is what it used to be, as a matter of fact, I think, for football.
Just conference only? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like this is strange, but it's strange when you're not used to it, Dustin, when you're accustomed to getting those tune-up games, so to speak. You've got a lot less pressure on you because you know that even if you play 50%, you're going to beat these teams. So you know you've got some allowance for mistakes. That's gone. Game one right now.
Yeah, and if you want to look at this from a beneficial standpoint, you look at the schedule and say that if there's one positive to take away from this, it's the fact that Indiana was scheduled to play Wisconsin week 1 right out of the gate anyway, make that trip to Madison, and you were expecting it in a hostile environment. So this coaching staff, these players have had all this time to prepare for Wisconsin. And that's why I think Indiana still has a good chance to upset Wisconsin and maybe start off the season with a bang. And then, like I said, then you got the continued gauntlet. But if there's one benefit to this, it's the fact that the first part of the schedule isn't changed. You look at some of these teams who were scheduled to play an FCS school or Group of 5 school using that as a tune-up game. Illinois is a great example. They had 3 wins essentially wiped off the board right out of the gate. I don't think they had a Big Ten game until week 4. So Indiana was going to have to prepare for a game, a tough matchup, a tough road game right out of the gate anyway. So nothing really changes from week 1. It's that week 2 to week – I'm not sure how the buys fit in here. I don't remember. But from week 2 to week 6, games 2 through game 6, that's where the challenge comes in. And if you can get a big win and feed off that momentum and carry that into Penn State, I mean, this is a Penn State team that may see some of its potential first-round draft picks opt out. We haven't seen – we've heard Micah Parsons is out. He hasn't made that final statement yet. You look at down the road, Minnesota, Rashad Bateman, probably the best receiver in the Big Ten, is opting out and pursuing the NFL. So Indiana may be able to take advantage of some of these better players opting out this season, and maybe that gives them a path to a 3-3 start, which would be a huge victory. But let me throw something else out here at you, too. We talk about the front-loaded schedule, and this is kind of a helter-skelter year, right? We're not really going to take away what the final record is from IU and forecast it on what's going to happen next season. But the big advantage here for Indiana, if you want to look at this as a positive, the last 4 games, Indiana plays Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, Purdue, a 4-game slate of teams that went 16-33 a season ago. Can you imagine if Indiana goes 4-0, wins 2 games, gets to 6-4, how much momentum they're going to have heading into next season? And 2021 could have been a really big breakthrough year anyway. So I think if you want to look at it as a positive, at least Indiana ends the season with the potential to go 4-0. And then you can, if you have a bowl game this season, I don't know if we're going to have bowl games this season, but you get those extra practices. You have a lot of momentum heading into 2021, and maybe you can make some noise in the Big Ten East that season.
Yeah, it's funny, Dustin. As I was looking at the schedule, the next thing I was going to talk about is if they could pull off the monumental upset of Michigan, which they should. They've been in position. Well, I shouldn't say they should. They can. They're capable of. We've seen them be in position to do that. But anyway, they could finish the season 5-0, and with a win over Michigan to catapult that, and then those 4 games that you just talked about and everything that follows, it could be the biggest. That would be the biggest finish to an Indiana season in the program's history.
Yeah, it absolutely would. And then you get your win over a blue blood program. And let's face it, even when the season was a 12-game slate, I thought that Indiana had a really good chance to get Wisconsin early in the season because they're going through so much change. They lost their top wide receiver in Quintez Cephas. They lost Jonathan Taylor at running back. So they're going through quite a few changes. They're going to have to find some offensive production. And then Michigan, I don't think, is going to be a very good football team. Now, they'll be a bowl team. Jim Harbaugh always has them playing well. But this is a team that they have to essentially replace their entire offensive line. They have to find a new quarterback. Their receiving core isn't that good. And then you've got some defensive issues with a lot of players switching positions, and you don't have quite the same level of talent as you had a season ago. So Indiana has chances to knock off some of those blue blood, typical top-tier Big Ten programs and really give themselves a ton of momentum heading into that 2021 season. But again, it's not so much to me the fact that Indiana can't beat these teams. It's the fact that you have Wisconsin, Penn State, Illinois, Ohio State, Minnesota, Michigan, all teams that were in a bowl game last season, all teams that finished 500 or better. And that's really, when you play those teams week in, week out, boy, it's going to wear on you, especially if you don't have quite as much depth as some of these teams like Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. So they have the capacity, they have the ability to beat some of those teams that I just mentioned in there, but how much of this front-loaded schedule grind is going to affect these players? And I think that's the big question you have with those first 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, and not just the grind, but the mental aspect of it, because it's as I look at that schedule, it's going to be so easy for the Hoosiers to start out at 1-3. And that sounds horrible, but if you look at the schedule, my God, you got Wisconsin, Penn State, and Ohio State in that three of those teams. Sorry, it's just as rough as it gets. So it could start out 1-3. They can go 2-2. If they can get to 2-2, that would be monumental in and of itself. But yeah, you're right. The mental, you got to get past that first month, first 5 weeks to get to the backside, and not just mentally, but physically as well.
Is going to be key, and this may be an area where you don't want to say that missing out on spring practice or having limited availability for the summer is a good thing. It's obviously not for a young team and a young program like Indiana has, but at the same time, in terms of health, I mean, these kids will probably be physically, as far as, injury standpoint, they'll probably be about as healthy as you could ask for, and that's going to be a benefit. Now, the other side of that is obviously going to be that everybody else is just as healthy too, right? So it's going to be a tough grind for Indiana this season. I like what Todd said. I think that this staff, I think really everybody in college football is going to get a pass this season. But what you can't do if you're an Indiana fan, and what tends to happen is, you look at some of these losses that Indiana may accrue, and you're like, well, this is same old Indiana. This is a team that has been close but can't quite, reach that hurdle. Well, this is a unique season, and the schedule really doesn't help that. At least when you had the original 12-game schedule, some of these games were spaced out, or they were front-loaded, or they weren't back-loaded, so at least Indiana could have built up some momentum playing the last 4 or 5 games with absolutely nothing to lose, and that's a very dangerous team. Now, like I said, you've got that grind physically, you've got that grind mentally up at the front, and it's going to be interesting to see how Indiana handles this. And who knows, if Indiana gets through those first 6 games at 3-3, we might be talking about Tom Allen as the Big Ten Coach of the Year, because that would be impressive considering what the hand they were dealt yesterday.
Absolutely. We'll see how it turns out, Dustin. I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. We look forward to doing it again next week.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Todd. You guys have a great weekend.
See you, buddy.
Dustin Schutte joining us from Saturday Tradition. Todd, that's how it's going to be, man. It's going to be a tough one, but I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward for the challenge of them. I know that they have the capabilities to do it. They have the personnel, and I'd love to see. It would be exciting. That would be just exciting.
Here's the thing. Here's the competitive side of me that just wants to feel this way about it. And honestly, I think this is going to be Tom Allen's approach. It's a great opportunity, and opportunities. Great opportunities don't come along every day or every year for you. This is a great opportunity for this football team to get off to an unbelievable start and unparalleled start for the whole program. And I didn't even think about it the way Dustin said that, but he's exactly right. There's a lot of teams that weren't preparing for a Big Ten opponent their first game of the year. Indiana's been preparing for Wisconsin since they lost in the bowl game last year. And that's a great point and a great way to look at it. They didn't have a couple cupcakes to get started. They've been preparing for a big-time game from day one.
They're going to get it, too, as they travel with Camp Randall. And
they're going to get it week 2. They're going to get it week 3.
They're going to get it every week, man. But, yeah, it's again, man, without the crowds, that's going to change things on the road for Indiana. And they weren't getting help at home anyway that much. So they've got that. So
true.
And
they lose less of an advantage than a lot of these teams do.
Exactly. And I just think that
Did you by chance look at Purdue's schedule?
I'm looking at it
look
right
at
now.
Purdue's beginning schedule. At Michigan, Iowa at home, Ohio State at home. Then they do get Illinois, at Illinois, though. And then they've got Wisconsin at home. At Wisconsin. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're at Wisconsin. So, I mean, look at that beginning of that schedule. That's harder than Indiana's.
The beginning, yeah, but see, you get it at the beginning, you get it over with. That's the thing.
But that's the way Indiana's is. It's exactly the way Indiana's is.
Oh, theirs doesn't lighten up though as much. But anyway, it's. I think that's going to be for a lot other than the Ohio States, who are those big jaws sharks that you see up there. It's going to be that way for a lot of people. It's definitely going to be exciting, and I think that Purdue Indiana game is going to come down to being 6-4 or not. Is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Hey, we'll take that. We'll take that opportunity.
We appreciate everybody for joining us as always. Jake Query, thanks to him, as well as Dustin Schutte. Yesterday I talked about we're going to start the overtime period, but Jimmy had to do something yesterday. Then today we've got Scott Dolson coming up next and Coach Allen right after that. So maybe we'll start on Monday, hopefully. But appreciate everybody joining us today. Look forward to doing it again tomorrow. Can't wait. Thanks to Todd and Jimmy and to Jake and Dustin again. And until then, make sure you wear your mask, do something nice for somebody. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.